Hello, welcome back. This is episode 3 in my tutorial series. As stated before, I'm Fires. If you're here from episode 1 or episode 2, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at setting up a test environment for the mod we created in episode 2, namely DayZ Server. There's a couple of ways of doing this. You can use DayZ offline mode, or you can use DayZ Server. If you have a server setup running already, then you could add your mod to that and test it that way. But DayZ offline mode has a couple of issues when it comes to running custom scripts, so you might find it won't work as intended. DayZ Server, it's a good all-rounder. It'll set us up for future episodes when we want to do further testing, and it essentially creates a local server on your PC. So the same as you would get a Daddy box, you'd have a server with all the files on. It'll be the same principle for your PC. You can use this to invite friends in, but that's a whole different story. We are going to use it purposely just to test our mods. So let's get on with that. So we need to open up Steam. Scroll down in your library to DayZ. If you don't see DayZ Server below, drop down menu, checkbox tools, done. Click on install, and once that's installed, we're going to look at the server files, so we can right click, manage, and browse local files. We will then be presented with the server files. Might look a little different on my screen. I've got a few mods added. I've created a couple of folders and a couple of other files which we are going to go through now. Okay, the first thing we need to do is create a batch file. For those who don't know, batch file is a file containing a series of instructions to be carried out by the operating system. We're going to use this to launch our server console, but we need to change some parameters, etc. first. So right click anywhere in this folder, create a new text document, select it all, and call it start.bat. I'm going to call mine start1.bat because I already have one. Click enter. It'll ask you if you want to change the file name extension. That's fine. We just converted it from a text file into a batch file. Now we can right click on that and edit. If you go to my Discord, the link is in the description. Under the tutorials, DayZ tutorial section, you'll see some assets that'll look something like this. These are dependent on the episode you're watching, so if you scroll down to episode 3, you will see batch file or start.bat with this information in. So we can copy that, paste this into our document, and these are the instructions that will be set for our server. Right, so we need to change some things here. First of all, we're going to change set server name. I'm going to call mine Thias test server. You can call yours whatever you like. Under set server location, between the speech marks, we need to go back to our DayZ server folder. Click in the address bar, right click copy, and paste that in there. We need to have a server dz.cfg file, but we're going to look at that at the moment. This batch file is saying to set the config to the file that we're about to create. One thing of note is this section here, profiles equals profiles. Some mods will create their own JSON files that you can modify for your server. It's going to be looking for a folder in your servers called profiles. If you use something like Nitrado, it won't have this editable, and it will be a config folder. Any server that requires a profile folder to create these files in, it won't do it automatically on a Nitrado server because it can't find a profiles folder. It's set up in config first. Things like your logs will be stored in the profiles folder as well, but again on Nitrado it'll be in a config folder. So if you're using Nitrado, you're going to need to add the JSON files manually into the config folder for it to register. But aside from that, we are creating a profiles folder, and the next thing we need to look at is the mod section. This is telling the batch files what mods to load when we start this up. So let's look at that. Okay, so what mods are we going to use? If you go to my Discord, under the tutorial section again, you will find some links to mods. We have community framework, and Community Online Tools. We're not going to worry about Dab's framework. So if we click on the link, you'll open up in Steam. Make sure you're logged in, and then you should have the option to subscribe. You might already be subscribed. If you're not, just click on subscribe, and we need to do the same for Community Online Tools. Click on subscribe, and they will download in the background. Now, if we go to DayZ Launcher, under mods, we can search for these. So, search for CF. We can click on the arrow down, 3 dots, open folder in Windows Explorer. I understand, and there's 2 we need from here. So we need CF, and we also need Community Online Tools. So we can copy them back to our server folder, paste them in, and the 2 mods are there ready to go. You'll need to add every mod that you want to run when using this server. We also need to tell our start bat file to initiate these mods. So if we copy at CF back to our batch file, and after the equals, paste that in, separate it with a semicolon. Now go back and do the same for Community Online Tools. It's important that you copy the exact name, otherwise it won't register. We don't need a semicolon at the end. The semicolon indicates that there's more to follow, but it's not in this case. Cool, now that's our batch file completed. You can save that, close it down. We talked in the last episode about keys, so we need the keys for these 2 mods. If you open up the mods, as we talked about last time, there's a keys folder. Let's copy that and go back to our server. There's a keys folder. We can paste that in there. Would normally need to do the same for Community Online Tools, but it's the same key, so you only need 1 version of it. The next thing we're going to look at is the server DayZ.cfg file. I've got some set up already, but we'll create another one for the benefits of this. I'm going to delete that one, and we're going to go new, text document, server DayZ.cfg. I messed that up. I left the text on the end, and also I need to put a number 1 in because I've already got one. So it's server DayZ.cfg. If it says .txt on the end, just remove that. Hit enter, click yes to our warning, and we're going to open that up. In our Discord, we have a copy of this. If we scroll up, you can see it here, server DayZ.cfg. Just need to copy this and paste that into our newly created document. I've got some stuff filled in here already, and you can change that, so you can change the host name if you like. One thing of note here is server time. It's currently using system time. It's going to take the time of your PC and start the game at that time. You can change that as it says on the end. Copy this, paste that in between the speech marks, and let's do it the 1st of January this year. So the year is 2023, the month is going to be January. Let's put 01 in there. The day is going to be 01. The hour, we'll just go midday, so 12:00. So this is going to start the server at 12 every time. Why would you do this? When you load into the server, it's always going to start daytime. If you use system time and you're working late at night, when you load into the server, it's going to be dark. That's why. There's a few other things in here that you can change, but we don't need to worry about that. This is generally for servers that are live, that have an active community, and you can change things in here for that. One other thing we need to look at is the missions, the class missions. So in this case, it's going to look at DayZ Offline Churners Plus. This is the mission to load. If we look in our server folder and go to MP missions, you'll see you have DayZ Offline Enoch, DayZ Offline Churners Plus. Churners Plus, Vanilla, Churners, Enoch, Livonia. So these are the files that the economy look at, zombie spawns, a bunch of other stuff. That's something I can look at further along the line. So if you wanted to load into Livonia, you could copy this and paste it between these speech bubbles instead. We're just going to leave it as journals because that's good for us. So we can save that, and the next step is to boot our server up. Now it's worth noting here that you can have multiple batch files and multiple server DayZ files to load different versions of the game. So you could have your start batch file to read server DayZ1, and that will load Livonia. You can have another one then if you've got mission files from the Malsk, any other map, you can use their mission files in this template section here, and that will allow you to load into that version of the game. I need to do a bit of cleanup because I'm using a different DayZ server file. So if I go into my batch file 1 and edit that, then I need to change this to server DayZ1.cfg. So we'll save that. Now we close all this down and run our batch file. So let's go back to our server folder. I'm going to run start1.bat. That's going to initiate the DOS window, which will then initiate the console, and that's here. This is going to load all the parameters that we've set, read the mission files that we've stated, and load the server up. Now if we go to our launcher and click on mods, we only need CF and online tool set up there, but if you go into servers and then click on LAN, you can see our local servers listed here. If we click on join, it tells us what mods we've got loaded and what's required. You can set them up and load it. Now we're not going to load our mod from the last episode yet because we need to authorize ourselves to use the tools. This touches on the profiles section we discussed earlier. So we're going to load this up. I might skip ahead here. Okay, so we're about to load into the game. Whenever it's ready. Here we are. Freshy. So the reason we started this up is so that we can generate the files required to give ourselves access to the tools. Ordinarily you press end and it would give you an option to add the tools, but we need to edit the file. So if we come out of the game altogether, go to our server folder, and in profiles you'll now see some different things added. So you've got your log files, and we have community online tools, and we have permissions framework. Now community online tools gives you different options that you can adjust, different JSON files, items, logs, things like that, but what we are more concerned with is the permissions framework. If we have a look at players, you should have a JSON file. This is your unique ID. Because we've loaded into the server, it's registered us in the server. So if we open that up, you can see our roles are everyone. What we need to do is give ourselves another role. So if we go back and look in the roles folder, you can see there's an admin.txt. This is giving us the permissions to use different aspects of the tools. Now you can see here admin.txt is everything's labeled with a 2, everyone.txt is a 0, and if we look at ourselves in players, what we need to do is add us as an admin. So we can just put a comma on the end of this and add admin. No need for a secondary comma, so we save that. And now when we load up the game again, so we can close this window down, press any key on the DOS window to stop the console running, and then we're gonna go back and rerun our file again. This is gonna go through the process of setting up the server console. As you can see here, it's it's loading all our files that we told it to load essentially and read in the mission itself. Now we can go back to our launcher, click on refresh, and now we should be able to join. Again, we're going to wait until the game loads up, so I'll be back in a moment. And here we are back in the game as our freshie again. So now if we hit end, Community Online Tools has been toggled on. Since we give ourselves the permissions in that JSON file, we are now able to use it. So if you press Y on the keyboard, we'll be presented with a menu. We won't go into too much detail for Community Online Tools, but you have camera tools, ESP, so you can look for players, different items in the game. You can look at the map. Object spawner, this is something we're going to touch on in a moment when we look for our files, but you can type in any class name here and you'll be able to spawn it in. So if we go for canteen, spawn on ourselves, there's our canteen. Just like that. Now we need to add our mod. So if we exit out of the game, you might have a countdown when you try to exit the game. We can change that briefly now. So we're going to stop the console from running, close that window down, go back to our server settings. Now what we need to do is add our new mod from the last episode. So wherever you save the PBO to, if you open it up, and I have it here, I'm going to copy this into my server folder. Inside the server folder, open the mod up, grab the key, copy whatever you called your key, and paste it in the keys folder in your server root. Now, if you don't want a timer, when you log in and log out, go into your MP missions folder, choose the mission you've chosen, in this case it's Cherners Plus, and in the DB folder we're going to be looking at globals. So if we open up the globals, you have two options here, time login and time logout. These are usually set to 15. Now if you just change the value to 0, that'll remove the countdown when you log in and when you log out. That's just something that makes it quicker for us when we load the file. So you can close and save that. Now we've copied in our mod to our root folder, but now we need to tell our batch file to load this mod. So we're going to copy the mod name and we are going to edit our batch file. So edit and semicolon and paste our mod name in there. Save this, close it down, run it, give it a moment or two, go back to our launcher. Sometimes when you try to join without closing the launcher after restarting the server, it's going to throw up an error or two. But we're going to look at why my console didn't load. So I'm going to stop it and reload it. Oh, there we go, it's loaded now. So best bet, close down the launcher, open it back up, go to your servers. Now we are trying to load a mod which isn't on the Steam Workshop, so we can add this local mod. So if you go to the mod section, click on local mod, and it's already selected there. But if you go to your PBO folder where you saved your PBO, select it. I've already loaded it previously, but you should get a little option saying to load it. But if I search for my new mod, I can click the checkbox, and if we go to the top, it's loaded there. The difference being with a local mod is it's not pulling it from Steam. As you can see here, these have got the Steam logo next to them. Mine hasn't, just because we loaded it locally. So go back to servers, back to LAN, join, set up DLC, and we're reloading the game. I'm gonna just stop this, jump back in when we're ready. I'll see you on the other side. Alright, we're just waiting for this to load in. As you can see, there's no countdown timer. When we log it in, it's just jumping straight to the initializing the game. And then we're ready. There we go, back in the game. Back with our freshie. So again, hit end to activate the tools, hit Y to bring up the menu. We want to go to Object Spawner. Sometimes you won't have the buttons along the bottom, just close the window and reopen it, and there they are. So we called them My Tactical Shirt, I believe it was. So if we search for My, you can see there, My Tactical Shirt DS, My Tactical Shirt Hex. So we're gonna spawn them on ourselves. Now this is where the ground models come into play. I believe I just spawned in the same ones. Yep, I spawned in two of the same ones, my bad. So this is the hex version we created. As you can see, it's got the bits that we cut out using the mask, and the same for the Dark Splendor version. Now we created two different image files, one from where we were wearing it and one from where it was on the ground. As you can see there, that's when it's on the ground, and this is when we were wearing it. And that's pretty much us done. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know what you want to learn next. I might just start doing a bit more detail on retexturing. Maybe look at some config edits we can do to the clothing to give it more inventory space, to make the waterproof side of it better. As you can see here, we went a bit rough on our cutouts, so the more detail you go into, the better. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Same as usual, like, subscribe, all that crap, and we'll see you next time. Booyaka!